What is the fastest motor to the top of a technical hill? It's a very simple challenge and there is a ton of detail which we will discuss. But ultimately, the quickest motor to the top of the hill wins the beers. Well, we have 6 challenges. I know that says 5, but we begin with the Haibike with the 4th generation Bosch Performance Line CX motor. Then it's the turn of the specialized Levo, the Brose motor, followed by a Canyon Spectralon Shimano E8000. Then we have the specialized Levo SL, 35 Nm motor in that, remember, which is one of the weakest motors on test, so that really will be up against it. Then we have the Yamaha PWX motor, which is great at lower cadences. And to conclude, we have the beast, the Haibike Flyon with a 120 Nm TQ motor. Right, let's kick things off with an outline of how this challenge is going to work. Now there's going to be 2 climbs, a very straightforward fire road climb followed by a super technical hill climb challenge. Now obviously all the motors are going to tackle both climbs, and what we're going to do is give you a running summary of the times on each climb. Right, so the first motor to tackle the bank is the 4th generation Bosch Performance Line CX motor, 75 Nm of torque. And there's 4 modes on this motor: Eco, Tour, eMTB, and of course Turbo, which will obviously be the mode we're riding today. The bike that it's mounted to is a Haibike X-Zero all-mountain 3.5 with 150mm travel, 29-inch wheel up front, 27.5 on the rear. Some critical geometry numbers on this bike: 455mm chainstay and a 74-degree seat tube angle. Strong up the first part. Logged. I can instantly feel it's pretty perky, that's for sure. The ground steepens. Good. Okay, into the tech part of the climb. I'm now going into the easiest gear. Oh, missed the gear. Strong, strong. Remember, avoiding those collisions, keeping a good line. On a 12-speed Shimano. Ooh, high line. Haven't done that before. Taking care through there. Seat up. Oh, it's strong. It is strong, for sure. Into 3rd. Whoa, run 1 done on this intensely hot day in the woods. Now, as I go through the different motors, while I do my different climb times, I'm going to point out some other bigger picture factors which will have more of an effect on your climb time and your climbing ability than simply that motor. And I'm going to start off with geometry. Now, we can cover all kinds of geometry numbers, from reach, from wheelbase to sizing to head angle, but I'm just going to focus in on 2 critical ones, and those are going to be the chainstay length and the seat tube angle. Because if you've got a chainstay which is too short, that means it's going to push a load of your weight over the back of the bike, leading to a lack of traction on the front. And similarly, and linked to that, is the seat tube angle. So if your seat tube is too far back, again, too much weight over the rear of the bike. The Specialized Levo has 29-inch wheels on it and a Brose motor with 90 Newton meters of torque. 3 modes in this bike: Eco, Trail and of course Turbo, which is the mode that we'll be riding in. 2 critical geometry numbers in this bike: the bottom bracket 347mm and the chainstay 455. Oh, and the weight, it's quite a lightweight bike, 20 kilos. And we're on the Levo. Oh boy, that goes up that bank. It feels like it's faster up there. Only the clock will tell. Keeping the momentum. Spinning through the gears. In the breaker slope. Legs are stinging. Legs are stinging. Okay, compose yourself. Moving forward on the seat. Okay, don't mess it up. Our heart through the ceiling. Well, run 2, Specialized Levo. Why on earth did I sign myself up to interval training hill climbs on a sweltering hot day like this? I don't know. Anyhow, I'm going to continue my chat about other factors which have a bigger impact on your climbing ability other than a motor. It's pointless having a great motor if you have other things which aren't in line, such as the geometry, which I mentioned earlier. This time round, I want to focus on componentry, and why not start with tyres? Now, the tyres actually we're using today are similar on all the bikes. They're the super soft compound Maxxis Assegai tyres, so we can cover that off. But if you've got a tyre which is too hard or which is got too much pressure in it, then obviously that's going to have a huge impact on your climbing. There are other things too, such as your seat. Now, there are increasingly a number of e-bike specific seats on the market, and the great thing about these is they not only have a bit of flex from side to side, but also some of them have got a tipped rear, which means you're not going to slip off the back of the bike. And one other final thing, which obviously has a big impact, and that is gearing. Now, throughout all these videos, I'm going to show you the different gearing we've got on all these bikes. So gearing, another thing to take into account. The Canyon Spectralon. Boy, we've been on some adventures on this bike. Now this time we have got 29-inch wheel up front, 27.5 on the rear, but similarly to many of the other bikes, 115mm travel. 17 Newton meters of torque from the Shimano E8000 motor, which you can customize, by the way, similar to the Specialized Levo. 430mm chainstay on this bike, which is the shortest on test, but a lightweight bike at 22 kilos. Okay, we are now live with the Canyon Spectralon, Shimano E8000 motor, slightly less torque than the Levo and the Haibike, but nevertheless bubbles along nicely. Now, I can't tell you how technical a challenge this is, coming into a super steep. Couldn't quite make that bit. So now you need to be a little bit cleverer with your line choice. Avoid the collisions. Look ahead a bit more. Plan for the next breaks of slope, like this one. I can't tell you This is a workout. Oh boy, but it's just relentless. The route, the rock, to avoid those collisions, such as that. Oh boy, heart rate has got to be up there. A real stinging tail. Oh, getting tired, and then one last push. It's really steep. Ah. Oh. This time I'm going to talk about how Cadence affects your ability to climb steep banks. As we found out with Rob Warner, he had no clue that Cadence mattered so much. Now, the Shimano system works better if you tend to spin it at higher revolutions, whereas a motor such as the Yamaha PWX works a little bit better at lower cadences. Specialized Levo SL. Now this bike, remember, is almost identical in sizing to its stablemate, the Levo, apart from one thing, and that is the chainstay. This bike has a 438, or was it 437? One or the other, compared to the 455 on the Levo. But this bike, 35 Newton meters of torque, which is quite different to the 90 on the Levo, but otherwise, 29-inch wheels, and of course, 17 to 18 kilos. The lightest bike on the challenge. Right, where are we? Now, we've already spoken about geometry, we've spoken about componentry. Now it's probably an appropriate moment to talk about weight. Now, it doesn't matter how many Newton meters of torque you've got, if you're lighter, you're going to get up that hill quicker. Absolutely no doubt about it. But weight on the bike, that also has an impact as well, because a lighter bike is going to be a little bit more maneuverable in those tight corners, but obviously a very different riding technique on a lighter bike. Aha, a curveball, you might say. Why has he got a hardtail while so far we've been riding full suspension bikes? Well, just to give you a heads up, I've just done the Fire Road hill climb on the full suspension version of the PWX Yamaha motor compared to the hardtail PWX motor, and the times are identical. So how does the hardtail deal with a technical climb? Because after all, I've been blathering on about how such things as geometry and componentry and weight affect a bike's ability to climb. Well, surely suspension has got to be a critical thing in a bike's climbing ability, because let's face it, in the traditional mountain bike world, it is widely accepted that a bike which is a hardtail can climb faster than a full suspension bike on smoother climbs. But let's see how this hardtail gets on the technical climb. In terms of the motor, it's the first generation Yamaha PWX with 18 Newton meters of torque in the extra power mode. Remember, this motor has got 5 power modes now. If I can remember, it's got Eco Plus, Eco, Standard, High Power, and Extra Power. Now, there's 70 Newton meters of torque nominal in the first 4 modes, and as I mentioned, 80 Newton meters in the higher power mode. Now, there's also a new PWX motor, the PWX 2, which actually gives more support in higher cadences. But let's try this puppy and see how we get on. But could this be it? The almighty Haibike Flyon with 120 Newton meters of torque, 5 modes, 29-inch wheel up front, 27.5 in the rear, the longest chainstay at 470, but also the heaviest weight at 28 kilograms. But like I said, 5 modes. There's only one mode though, extreme. Extreme today. Okay, here we go then. Clock is running. Now the first part of the climb is actually a double step, and only the Bosch and the lever managed to get up there, so the Haibike Flyon is in good company. So spinning up, going through the gears, but it does seem quite a bit more effortless than some of the other bikes now. Trail steepens yet again, starts to get more technical. Heart rate starts rising, trail starts steepening. Now this is the first really steep part, and some of the bikes, actually most of the bikes, struggle here. Flyon, pretty easy. Played safe on the rut. Now it's a question of just getting the cadence nice and even. Really hard part. So there you go. Even the Flyon can make a mistake if you've got too much power underneath you. You've really got to be careful with that power. Heart rate rising. You can really smooth out those turns though. Technical rock. Whoa. Careful. Takes the momentum out of things. And the final bank. And there we have it. Oh boy, this is a super tough day. Now, I know what you're thinking. He's already been up the hill on this bike. However, this is exactly the same bike, but it has got the latest motor update from Bosch to 85 Newton meters. The question is, how much difference does 10 Newton meters make on a technical hill climb? We're about to find out. And we're into run number 3 on the new Bosch motor update, just to get a good average spread of times here. And it's freaking me out just how much quicker it is on the previous runs. Anyhow, in we go, spinning it over as the ground changes, as we've seen on many times. I'm in turbo mode, as I have been on all the bikes. This is the breaker slope. I tell you what, it still hurts the legs. Avoid the collisions. Oh boy. A little bit of a mistake. Keep it bubbling. Keep it bubbling. So the time to beat 1:48.64, I think it was. Oh boy. There's the top. I think now it is time for a bit of time analysis over a coffee. A very well earned one, I have to say. Okay, so we have our set of numbers, and remember, they apply to two particular hills with one rider and a range of bikes. If you took that to another hill, you might come across a different range of results. So, do they matter? Well, of course they do, especially if you're in a rush. And in many ways, the results we found are probably quite similar to, say, if you took a 1.6 litre car and compared it to a 2 litre car. However, within these numbers that we've got here is a load of detail which I want to talk over with you. Right, first up, you can see that there isn't really a correlation between higher torque and faster speeds, other than between the 120 Nm TQ motor and the Levo SL on the smooth forest road climb. It's in the technical climbs with the higher torque motors that questions really do need answering. Now, gearing is certainly something that needs further examination, because if you have a look at the two Yamaha PWX bikes that we used the Haibike S0 full suspension, 180mm travel, and also the Hardtail, and we actually chose to use the Hardtail for the purposes of this video. But the key detail here is that the full suspension bike had 1150 cassette on the back, and the Hardtail had 1140 cassette on the back, which is actually not only a smaller range, but it's also quite a lot cheaper when it comes to buying them. Now, when it came to the Fire Road hill climb, there was really very little difference between the two bikes, the full suspension over the Hardtail bike. But when it came to the technical climb, we really did think that the Hardtail would be held back because of the technicality of the climb. But it was actually exactly the same time as the full suspension bike, bearing in mind a difference in travel and also that difference in the cassette range. Also worth mentioning, there is a 1042 cassette on the Specialized Levo, which we'll be discussing later. But moving on to the other Specialized bike in the hill climb, which was the Levo SL, which is almost a quarter of the power of the highest power bike, the Haibike with the TQ motor. Should it have been in our hill climb challenge? Maybe not, but nevertheless, it's some facts there for you to ponder over. Wow, what can you say about the difference between the 75 Nm Bosch Performance CX motor and the updated one, which takes it to 85 Nm? Almost a 13-second difference on this particular hill climb. Now, obviously that is hugely significant, but I think more than this is the fact that the new updated motor has a wider cadence range than it did have previously. And when you talk about cadence, you've got to think about the Yamaha motors. The PWX motor actually operates in a different cadence range, a lower cadence range to many of the others on the hill climb, which might have had an impact in the results. And finally, weight. Now, this is a massive subject. We know that lighter riders climb faster than heavier riders, all things being equal. But what effect does weight have on the bikes in this particular challenge? Well, if you look at the top three bikes here, we've got the Haibike Flyon, which weighs in at around 28 kilos compared to its stablemate, the X0, which is about 25 kilos. And then, of course, you've got the Levo, which weighs in at 21 kilos. Now, the question is, would the results have been different had the bikes all been the same weight? Because if you look at here, the Flyon comes in at on average of 150.12 on the climbs. The Haibike 3.5 with the 85 Nm motor, 148.67, and the Specialized Levo, which is the fastest climber, 147.04. Now there's a 4 kilo difference between the Levo and the Haibike 3.5. So you have to ask this question of weight when it comes to hill climbing. We've talked about many things today, gone through some pretty crazy emotions as well, and we've not even spoken about some of the finer detail when it comes to hill climbing, such as different surfaces, different gradients, different textures, rocks, roots, and all the factors that go into a technical hill climb. There's also the length of a hill climb as well. I mean, we've just done a 2.5 minute climb and also a 30-second fire road sprint, but to sustain a climb for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, you know, we've done climbs up in the Alps which last 1 to 2 hours long. It's almost impossible to put maximum effort into those kind of climbs. But ultimately, forget about all the motors. it's your rider skill which will have the biggest impact of all when it comes to your ability to climb technical trails. So there you have it. Let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to us on social media, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.